So today we are going to study liver failure. We are going to know about liver failure. So a person might be having disease in his liver, and disease in liver could be an acute, it could be with the presentation of an acute, or it could be a chronic presentation. So when a person walks into the clinic or walks into the hospital with a supposedly liver trouble, the person could be having acute liver condition, or he or she could be having a chronic liver condition. So acute liver conditions we have already studied. Acute liver conditions like most common viral hepatitis. So a person could be having acute viral hepatitis. Similarly, a person could be having a chronic viral hepatitis. So acute viral hepatitis person, the most common symptoms are fatigue, nausea, malaise, body ache, myalgia, and jaundice, right? So acute conditions. Chronic conditions, repeated bouts of jaundice, right? Jaundice coming and going, fatigue, prolonged fatigue, cachexia, person could be thin, emaciated, right? So these could be the presentations of the chronic conditions of the chronic liver diseases, right? So today we are going to study about one more very important acute condition of the liver where a person goes into liver failure. So liver failure, let us know what is a liver failure, because it is an emergency when a person goes into liver failure, and it should be managed aggressively, otherwise person may die. So let us know what is liver failure. So liver failure, the definition is, it is the inability of the liver to perform its normal synthetic and metabolic function as a part of normal physiology. When the liver can no longer perform its physiological function, we call it as a failure, just like other failures like kidney failure, right? So 80 to 90% when the liver cells, they lose their capacity to normally do their metabolic functions, physiological functions, we call that as liver failure, right? So 80 to 90% when the liver fails, you can say when liver fails 80 to 90%, we call that condition as liver failure. Anyways, liver failure is happening in all the conditions, whether it is acute hepatitis, acute viral hepatitis, or chronic viral hepatitis, or autoimmune hepatitis, right? Whatever the condition is, liver failure is happening. But when that liver failure reaches 80 to 90%, when the liver cannot physiologically function 80 to 90% of its functions, then we call that as liver failure, that the person has gone into liver failure. So there are three types: acute liver failure, chronic liver failure, and acute on chronic liver failure. We will discuss only first two. The third is very simple. What happens in third, acute on chronic liver failure? The name itself is defining the condition. When a person is having a chronic liver condition, for example, if somebody is suffering with a chronic liver disease, say cirrhosis of liver, alcoholic cirrhosis, or say chronic hepatitis, chronic viral hepatitis, right? So if such person goes into the condition of acute failure, acute liver failure, suddenly he or she develops the features of acute liver failure, we call that as acute on chronic liver failure, right? So first is acute liver failure. For liver, we have the acute and chronic means a big time gap. Before 6 months, if some liver failure is happening, we call that as acute liver failure, right? After 6 months, it becomes chronic. So liver diseases up to 6 months, they are acute, and after 6 months, they are chronic, right? It is not like other systems where few weeks are considered as acute, right? So in acute liver failure, there will be loss, and there will be loss or death of hepatocytes. So massive hepatic destruction, hepatic necrosis. Now acute liver failure is coined when two most important symptoms are present in the patient, and these are encephalopathy. Encephalopathy, you can very well imagine encephalopathy, there would be something related to the brain, right? Cephalum. Encephalopathy and coagulopathy, right? Coagulopathy. So now this acute liver failure is again of two types. One is also called as fulminant hepatic failure and second is subfulminant hepatic failure. Now this 6 months time period is again divided into two, where less than 8 weeks and greater than 8 weeks up to 6 months, approximately 6 months, right? So if a liver failure is happening in less than 8 weeks, right? For example, suppose today I am very much healthy and after 2 weeks, after 2 weeks from now, I suddenly develop the symptoms of liver failure, then I would be considered as fulminant hepatic failure, right? Fulminant hepatic failure. But if suppose today I am healthy and I might be having certain liver conditions like certain jaundice, I develop certain jaundice, and after 8 weeks, right, after 2 months, I start developing the features of liver failure, then that would be called as subfulminant hepatic failures, right? So fulminant hepatic failure, obviously it is more dangerous, right? Depending on the severity, it could be more dangerous. So fulminant hepatic failure means when the liver failure is happening within 8 weeks after the onset of symptoms, right? So suppose today if I am infected with say hepatitis B, and after 2 weeks, within 2 months, I get the attack of acute liver failure, then it would be called as fulminant hepatic failure, right? So what could be the causes for acute liver failure? These are very important causes. You should always keep them in your mind, because when a person presents you with such conditions, they could be in the liver failure. So viral hepatitis A, E, B, right? Most commonly A, E, B, they can land the person into acute liver failure. Always remember, students, hepatitis A and E are self-limiting and most of the times they do not cause much trouble to the patient. But it also depends on the underlying problem. For example, if suppose somebody is already having a chronic liver condition, right? Or for example, if somebody is having a immunodeficiency disease, right? In such cases, or if suppose somebody is having liver cirrhosis, a person is having alcoholic liver cirrhosis and he or she is infected with hepatitis A or E, then that hepatitis, which is generally the A and E, which are self-limiting, they might progress the liver into acute liver failure, right? So A, E and B, right? A, E and B could be the cause. Apart from this, the most important cause is drug toxicity, right? Most importantly is paracetamol toxicity. Most of the people, they take too much amount of paracetamol in order to relieve themselves from the pain, or sometimes as an act of suicide also, right? So more amount of acetaminophen is the most common cause for acute liver failure. So too much paracetamol damages the liver and it causes other drugs also. For example, other NSAIDs, statins, anti-tuberculous drugs, if taken in high doses, phenytoin, right? So they can land up the person into acute liver failure. Apart from that, there is a condition, Budd-Chiari syndrome, where there is an obstruction to the hepatic vein. We will study about this later. Then some other conditions like pregnancies, right? In pregnancies, there are certain conditions. If the liver, there are very good chances that the person might go into acute liver failure because of the pregnancy, right? Then other diseases, underlying diseases, for example, Wilson disease, some autoimmune diseases of liver, malignancies, right? But all these conditions, they should be less than 6 months, right? They should be less than 6 months. Always remember. Suppose if I am diagnosed with autoimmune hepatitis, right? Suppose today if I am having autoimmune hepatitis, and within 6 months of my diagnosis, if I develop acute liver failure, then that would be called as acute liver failure, right? So acute liver failure is not a disease, it's a condition. This condition arises because of the other underlying problems. For example, most commonly drug toxicity, viral hepatitis. Then clinical features. So apart from the common liver symptoms, liver disease symptoms: fatigue, malaise, lethargy, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, right upper quadrant discomfort. Always remember jaundice, right? There will be certain specific features which we have already talked about in definition: hepatic encephalopathy and coagulopathy. So when encephalopathy is as a result of hepatic derangement, we call that as hepatic encephalopathy, also called as hepatic coma, because the person might go into coma. So why encephalopathy? Because of liver. Because liver is the main organ which do the detoxification, right? So the ammonia generated in the body is detoxified by the liver, right? And it converts ammonia into urea, and urea is thrown out of the body through the kidney, right? So but when liver is deranged, then this ammonia is no longer converted into urea, right? It no longer is converted into urea, and this increased level of ammonia, whenever the nitrogenous waste in the blood is increased, it leads to cerebral derangement. So this ammonia leads to impaired CNS functions, impaired neuronal functions, and cerebral edema, right? It will cause swelling in the cerebrum. So it results in disturbances in consciousness. There could be mental changes, there could be disturbances in the consciousness, right? The person might be conscious but not be fully conscious. He might not be fully aware of his surroundings, right? So this disturbances in consciousness, it ranges from subtle behavioral abnormalities. Certain subtle means very less behavior, very small behavior will change. For example, person might skip his words, person might not be able to do simple things like calculating 2 plus 2, or person might not be aware of the day, the time, right? Subtle changes. Or even less than that, person might not be able to sleep also at night. Suddenly he might not be able to sleep at night, right? And suddenly his personality might change. He might grow very angry, or he might grow very depressive, right? So personality changes could be there. Subtle behavioral abnormalities to marked confusions. Or sometimes if the ammonia levels are very high in the blood, if the liver is very much decompensated, then it might lead directly into marked confusions or stupor, right? Person will be stupid, right? Person will be very much confused. He might not be aware of the people around him, or who is he, or what is he doing, why he is doing that thing, right? Or it can, if it is too much, it can lead directly to coma. The person might become unconscious, coma, and die also, right? A very peculiar feature in hepatic encephalopathy is hysterexis. Hysterexis is flapping tremors, right? When you tell the patient to raise their hand in front of them, right, like this, right, then the person, where is it, the person hands will be, there will be tremors in his hands, right? His hands will not be stable, they will be moving. So that is called as flapping tremors or hysterexis. So if somebody is having hysterexis, it is clear cut sign of encephalopathy because of various reasons. Here we are talking about the encephalopathy because of the liver. So hysterexis is a characteristic sign: non-rhythmic rapid extension and flexion movements of the head and extremities. Extremities means hands. Most commonly you can see it in hands in extended posture, or the head also. The head also will move. It will also, head will also be having tremors. So best held when the arms are held in extension with dorsiflexed wrist. Right. So hepatic encephalopathy is the first important feature of acute liver failure. So if somebody is having all these features, you can tell them you are going into, or you can diagnose them as hepatic encephalopathy because of acute liver failure. Next is coagulopathy, right? Coagulopathy. So we know that liver is responsible for the production of various clotting factors, right? So certain clotting factors which are produced with the help of vitamin K, and certain factors which are not produced by the with the help of vitamin K, right? So when there is hepatic failure, then the liver will not be able to produce these clotting factors, and it will result in coagulopathies, right? Coagulopathies. There will be coagulation disturbances. So INR, you know what is INR? PT INR we have already talked about. PT, prothrombin time, which is 12 seconds. Right, in yesterday lecture I told about 20 seconds. It is not 20 seconds. Make a correction. It is 12 seconds. So PT-INR, the PT will be increased and the INR will also be increased. INR basically is the ratio of the deranged PT over the normal PT, like, right? So INR will be greater than 1.5, greater than or equal to 1.5. Then we say that the person is going into coagulopathy. Easy bruisability, right? If you even little scratch over the skin, little bruise over the skin will lead to blood coming out. Easy bruisability is the early sign of this process, and this is very life threatening. You know, whenever there is coagulation inside the body, right, it is whenever there is coagulation inside the body, it is dangerous, and whenever there is no coagulation, then also it is very much dangerous, because little bleed also will lead to life threatening bleeding, life threatening blood loss, and the person might go into hypovolemic shock, or the person might bleed itself into the body organs. For example, the fatal intracranial bleeding, if suppose bleeding starts within the cranium, and it could lead to death, right? So coagulopathies, when the coagulation process is disturbed and there is no longer healthy coagulation, there is no longer coagulation process, then it is a life threatening process. So second important characteristic of liver failure, acute liver failure, is coagulopathy. The third important feature is fetor hepaticus, right? In acute liver failure, the third important feature is fetor hepaticus. Fetor, right? So what is fetor hepaticus? It is a sweetish pungent smell, right? The person will be having a odor which will be sweetish and pungent, which will be just like some sweet, just like the smell of some sweet, but it will be pungent also. It will not be good, right? So a sweetish pungent smell, this fetor hepaticus smell, sweetish pungent smell, it is same as that of the diabetic person, when a diabetic person goes into diabetic ketoacidosis. So similar to that sweetish pungent smell in the breath or from the clothes, right, it comes, and it is again because of the failure of the synthetic, because of the failure of the biosynthetic functions of the liver, right? Because liver detoxifies, apart from ammonia, it also detoxifies sulfur. So when these sulfur compounds are not detoxified, that sulfur leads to the increased sulfur in the blood, it leads to the sweetish pungent smell from the breath. So what are the investigations? So the clinical features are enough to diagnose a person going into acute liver failure. Apart from this, the first important investigation is PT-INR. If the PT-INR is raised, we can suspect acute liver failure. Thrombocytopenia, if the thrombocytes are less, right? Apart from this, regular increased levels of the aminotransferases, ALT, AST, the cholestatic enzymes, alkaline phosphatase, and bilirubins, right? Apart from this, another most important investigation is blood creatinine, right? The creatinine levels in the blood will be increased, and the blood ammonia levels will also be increased. Apart from this, you can also do one more test which is called as BUN, B-U-N, blood urea nitrogen. So the urea levels will be raised, the nitrogen levels will be raised, the ammonia levels will be raised, the creatinine levels, all the nitrogenous waste levels will be raised in the body. And this acute liver failure, because of the increased nitrogenous waste, it can lead to acute renal failure also, right? And it can affect the lungs also. So that is called as hepatorenal syndrome, right? And hepatopulmonary syndrome, because of the liver, the lungs and the liver, they might also go into failure. So ultimately it will lead to multiple organ failure. Right. So after acute liver failure, we have learned about the acute liver failure, its causes. We have learned about the most important characteristic features of acute liver failure. Let us see what is chronic liver failure. So when there is a liver failure because of the underlying liver condition, but that liver failure happens after 6 months. Suppose if today I am diagnosed with hepatitis B, right, and after 6 months I develop the liver failure, right, then it will be called as chronic liver failure. So chronic liver failure, see we cannot label them as less dangerous or more dangerous, which is what chronic liver failure and acute liver failure. Both are emergency conditions and both should be dealt strictly, but it is very much evident that the chronic liver failure will be having a bad prognosis because already the person in the chronicity, right, and hardly there are things which we can do, right. Whereas acute liver failure, although if managed properly, the person might live well, but if not handled properly, it might lead to death, immediate death, right. So let me give you an example. Suppose there is an alcoholic person, right, and he or she has drank too much of alcohol. Then the person will go first into acute hepatitis, right, and in that acute hepatitis also he is, Devdas sort of guy, right. That Devdas kept on drinking in spite of having acute hepatitis, in spite of having jaundice in his eyes, in spite of jaundice in his body, in spite of having liver discomfort, in spite of nausea, in spite of vomiting, and every other feature of acute hepatitis. Right, he kept on drinking, and on third or fourth day he went into encephalopathy. He stopped responding to the people, and he went into the encephalopathy, and you labeled him as, or you diagnosed him as acute liver failure because he has drank too much alcohol and he goes into acute liver failure, right. But that can be managed, right, although if not managed he will die, but that can be managed and the person can live throughout his life a normal healthy life if he follows the instructions. But if suppose a person is already having alcoholic liver cirrhosis, the liver has already progressed into cirrhotic stage, and such alcoholic cirrhosis patient comes to you with features of liver failure, you will label him as chronic liver failure, right, and that will be life threatening, that will not be managed. The person might not live healthy afterwards, right. So the chronic liver failure, the prognosis is very bad, whereas acute liver failure, if managed well, the prognosis is good. So chronic liver failure, the causes are hepatitis B and C. Hepatitis B and C, because these hepatitis B and C, they goes into chronicity, right? Hepatitis B and C are the viral hepatitis which causes chronic hepatitis. So hepatitis B and C, if chronically present, they might be the reason for chronic liver failure. Alcohol, right? Same alcohol and other drugs, right? When taken constantly taken in high doses, right? Chronic liver failure. Then diseases, the liver diseases which are chronic liver diseases, for example, genetic diseases, Wilson disease, hemochromatosis, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, right? Liver cirrhosis, autoimmune hepatitis, primary biliary cirrhosis, primary sclerosing cholangitis, right heart failure. These all things can lead to chronic liver failure. Okay. Right, so there is one more term called as medical encephalopathy. When you develop troubles in your consciousness, reduced consciousness in medical studies, keep studying.